Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. This is News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. The US President Joe Biden warns Iran against potential attack on Israel. Russia's additional military assets to protect Israel and American forces in the region. UN experts alarmed by lack of protection for minority girls from forced religious conversions and forced marriages in Pakistan. 6 persons killed in a horrific attack at Sydney shopping centre. Attacker also shot dead. It's a festival weekend in India. Baisakhi is being celebrated in Punjab, Rongali Bihu in Assam and Vishu in Kerala. Iran's Revolutionary Guards seized an Israeli-linked cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday. Iran has threatened to retaliate for the suspected Israeli airstrikes on its consulate in Syria's capital Damascus that happened on April 1 that killed 7 Revolutionary Guards. On Friday, the US President Joe Biden warned Iran not to attack Israel. The US rushed warships into position to protect Israel and the American forces in the region. This report presents us with a clearer picture.
Amid the ongoing tensions in Middle East, Israel military has warned that Iran will bear consequences for any escalation in the region after the UK maritime trade operation confirmed that a vessel has been seized between United Arab Emirates and Iran on Saturday, days after Iran warned it could close the area to sea traffic.
Iran will bear the consequences for choosing to escalate the situation any further. Israel is on high alert. We have increased our readiness to protect Israel from further Iranian aggression. We are also prepared to respond. The Israel Defense Forces prepared for all scenarios, and we will take the necessary steps, together with our allies, to protect the people of Israel.
On Friday, US President Joe Biden issued a stern warning to Iran, stating an Iranian attack could take place sooner than later.
Mr. President, Iran right now. What is your message to Iran in this moment?
Don't. We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed.
After a sharp rise in the tensions between the two countries, India, along with several other countries including France, Poland and Russia, have also warned their citizens against traveling to West Asia and the Gulf. Germany warned its citizens to leave Iran, while Austria suspended all flights from Vienna to Tehran till 18th April, and the United Kingdom told its citizens to avoid all but essential travel to Israel and Palestine over the possibility of an attack on Israeli territory from Iran. Iran has threatened to retaliate after airstrikes on its consulate in Syria's capital Damascus. The attack that took place on April 1 killed Iran's 7 Revolutionary Guards officers, including 2 senior commanders. Regional tensions have grown since Israel-Gaza conflict in October, with Israel and United States clashing repeatedly with Iranian-aligned groups in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq and Yemen.
And Alex Kadia now joins us from Tel Aviv with an update on these stories. Alex, does Israel see the seizure of an Israeli-linked cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz as an escalation? And are there any guidelines for ship routes?
Well, they certainly see this as something that will require consequences. That ship, which is Portuguese flag, this is not an Israeli ship, but it is owned by a company which is linked to an Israeli billionaire, and that is why we understand the Iranians have seized it, and piracy, as it was described by Israel Katz, the foreign minister of Israel, and it is seen as part of a series of smaller actions that Iran may be starting to do in retaliation for that airstrike which you just heard about. So certainly we don't exactly know how that retaliation will come. Will it be a series of small events like these, seizing civilian ships, firing rockets into the north of Israel, sending weapons into the West Bank. It's not entirely clear, and we are approaching the end of what was going to be a 48-hour window that the US intelligence community said this retaliation would come through. So it's very much a sense of uneasy anticipation, of discomfort, of waiting for that retaliation to happen. It may be smaller than expected, but we certainly know that a lot of diplomatic efforts are going into preventing it. The US playing a leading role there, trying to urge the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and China to use whatever influence they may have on Iran to prevent any escalation. The US for its part, telling Israel to keep it in the loop for any response to that retaliation. So clearly the United States and others trying to avoid the escalation in this region.
Also, Alex, how prepared is Israel to take on Iran directly? It has been fighting the proxies of Iran across the region.
Well, I think that's not something that anybody particularly wants to see happen, but Israel says it is at a very high level of readiness, it is on very high alert, and it is ready for any threats either near Israel or further afield. And we have seen rockets coming in from southern Lebanon, targeting towns in the north of Israel, some of which are evacuated, some of which are not, and clearly those proxies, Hezbollah, continuing their fight. The Israeli Defense Forces striking a command post, as they described it, in southern Lebanon. And we also understand that an Israeli border town's security team were seriously wounded in a recent Hezbollah drone attack just in the last few minutes. So clearly the battles with those proxies will continue to rage on while the world tries to avoid a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran.
We leave it there. Thank you very much. Alex Kadir joining us from Tel Aviv. The UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief, sale and sexual exploitation of children, contemporary forms of slavery, trafficking in persons, especially women and children, violence against women and girls, its causes and consequences, has once again raised concern about the plight of women and girls from the minority communities in Pakistan. And this report summarizes the UNHRC's press release of the 11th of April this year. Take a look.
The UNHRC published a statement on the 11th of April. It expressed dismay at the continuing lack of protection for young women and girls belonging to minority communities in Pakistan. Christian and Hindu girls remain particularly vulnerable to forced religious conversion, abduction, trafficking, child, early and forced marriage, domestic servitude and sexual violence. The exposure of young women and girls belonging to religious minority communities to such heinous human rights violations and the impunity of such crimes can no longer be tolerated or justified. The UN experts express concern that forced marriages and religious conversions of girls from religious minorities by coercion are validated by courts, invoking religious law to justify keeping victims with their abductors rather than allowing them to return to their parents. Under international law, consent is irrelevant when the victim is a child under the age of 18. Perpetrators often escape accountability, with police dismissing crimes under the guise of love marriages. A woman's right to choose a spouse and freely enter into marriage is central to her life, dignity, and equality as a human being and must be protected and upheld by law. The UN Human Rights Report stressed the need for provisions to invalidate, annul, or dissolve marriages contracted under duress with the due consideration for the women and girls concerned, and to ensure access to justice, remedy, protection, and adequate assistance for the victims. Among the cases cited, Mishal Rashid, a young girl abducted at gunpoint at her home while preparing for school in 2022. Rashid was sexually assaulted, forcibly converted to Islam, and forced to marry her abductor. On 13th March 2024, a 13-year-old Christian girl was allegedly abducted, forcibly converted to Islam, and married to her abductor after her age was recorded as 18 on the marriage certificate. The report found Pakistan in violation of its obligations in relation to Article 18 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the prohibition of forced religious conversions. The Pakistani authorities must enact and rigorously enforce laws to ensure that marriages are contracted only with the free and full consent of the intended spouses, and that the minimum age for marriage is raised to 18, including for girls. All women and girls must be treated without discrimination, including those belonging to the Christian and Hindu communities or indeed other religions and beliefs. They urge Pakistan to bring perpetrators to justice, enforce existing legal protections against child, early and forced marriage, abduction and trafficking of minority girls, and to uphold the country's international human rights obligations. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now still to come here on DD India News Hour. Election campaign picks up across several Indian states. An attacker fatally stabs 6 people in a Sydney mall and is shot dead by the police. Indonesia's military denies using airstrikes on Papua New Guinea.
Poll Pulse tracks the pulse of the poll-bound southernmost Indian state of Tamil Nadu.
Voting is our responsibility.
This is a big fight between BJP and India alliance.
Will you vote?
Yeah, power of democracy. This is a huge.
BJP is trying her best, for the past 10 years under the flagship of Sri Narendra Modi Garu.
The 2024 Lok Sabha polls in Tamil Nadu are witnessing the battle royale between DMK, AIADMK and the BJP.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. And now let's get you the latest from the world's largest democratic election in India. Well, campaigning has picked up momentum ahead of India's general elections 2024. Several Bharatiya Janata Party leaders held massive roadshows nationwide. And for the Congress leaders addressed public meetings in Chhattisgarh as well as in Uttarakhand.
India is gearing up for general elections 2024 as campaigning picks up in full swing. Senior BJP leader and India's Home Minister Amit Shah held roadshows in support for the party candidates in Tamil Nadu and Rajasthan. Addressing the rally in Kanyakumari, he said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has worked to increase the pride of Tamil language and culture in the country and the world. He also held rally in Rajasthan's Alwar. BJP leader and Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also held roadshow in Tamil Nadu to woo voters. Another BJP leader, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, also held rallies in Chhattisgarh's Dantewada and Kanker.
हम लोगों की यह धारणा रही है, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी की यह सोच रही है, जब तक हर व्यक्ति का विकास नहीं होगा, और विकास केवल नहीं कि उसके पास खाने पीने का साधन मुहैया हो जाए, उसका पढ़ाई भी होनी चाहिए, लिखाई भी होनी चाहिए, ज्ञान भी होना चाहिए, संस्कार भी होना चाहिए, सब कुछ होना चाहिए.
Bihar's former Deputy Chief Minister Tejasvi Yadav released the Rashtriya Janata Dal's manifesto titled as Parivartan Patra. RJD highlighted 24 promises including 5 new airports in the state. The manifesto also guarantees 10 million jobs. But NDA says that people of Bihar have not forgotten the misrule of RJD governments in the state and now they won't get swayed away by RJD's hollow promises.
बिहार की जनता ये मन बना चुकी है कि पुनः तीसरी बार मौजूदा प्रधानमंत्री जी को ही देश का प्रधानमंत्री बनाना है और उत्तर प्रदेश को उदाहरण के तौर पर बिहार के लोग भी देख चुके हैं कि सही मायनों में एक डबल इंजन की सरकार ही राज्य का विकास कर सकती है.
Congress's Central Election Committee also met at the AICC headquarters in Delhi to discuss the candidates for Lok Sabha elections in Haryana, Himachal Pradesh and Odisha. Its leader Rahul Gandhi addressed a poll rally in Chhattisgarh's Bastar. Rahul Gandhi said that Congress will provide job opportunities to the youth if voted in power.
एक साल के लिए प्राइवेट कंपनी में, सरकारी PSUs में, पब्लिक सेक्टर यूनिट्स में, सरकारी ऑफिसेज में हिंदुस्तान के बेरोजगार युवाओं को 1 साल की नौकरी मिलेगी.
Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi held rally in Uttarakhand's Roorkee and Ramnagar. In her address, She stressed that youth are the nation builders and the upcoming election is going to decide their future. The upcoming elections will be conducted in 7 phases nationwide and results will be announced on June 4. This will mark India's longest general elections lasting over 44 days. Triparthi for DD India.
The 3 parliamentary seats of Jalpaiguri, Alipurdor and Kuch Bihar in the state of West Bengal will go to the polls on the 19th of April. A large part of this area falls on the international border between India and Bangladesh, which is guarded by one of the world's largest paramilitaries, the Border Security Force of India. On polling day, the Border Security Force has the added responsibility of ensuring a free and fair voting in the villages that fall in no man's land. Now, no man's land is the area between the borders of the 2 countries that is not controlled by either country. DD India's Gautam Roy reports from one such border village.
One of the world's largest paramilitary organizations, India's Border Security Force or BSF, has the task of guarding the nation's international borders. Come polling day on the 19th of April in the first of the 7-phase general elections, it has to play a dual role in Jalpaiguri parliamentary seat's Chitsakati village. Chitsakati and dozens of other villages in North West Bengal's 3 Lok Sabha seats, which poll on the 19th of April, are on no man's land between the zero line which separates India from Bangladesh and the border fence which has been erected at a distance of 150 yards on the international boundary on the Indian side. The BSF has to ensure that while villagers have no trouble reaching the polling station which is across the border fence, no imposters or undesirable elements make it across. What helps the guards is India's digitized biometric identification system, Aadhaar.
We have installed a biometric system here and their data is already fed into the system. They are free to cast their vote, even if for some reason they can't go themselves because of age or some other reason. We can give them a vehicle.
Chitsakati's villagers say they're satisfied with the arrangements and are looking forward to polling day.
नहीं सर, हम लोग का कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
We have no problem moving around. We also have motorcycles and we can move around freely. We have no issues with the BSF even at night. If there is an emergency, they open the gate and let us in.
तो गेट रात 12 बजे चाहे 1 बजे तुरंत गेट खुल देता है.
आना जाना ठीक है वोट. We have vote here. There is no problem. We can come and go with ease. There is no problem in voting. वोट कम हो जाएगा, वोट देगा.
The villagers also say what they would like their elected representative to do is to get a bridge across a nearby river, connecting their village to the border fence, fixed so that they don't have to tread a track which gets submerged during the rains. Construction of structures in no man's land can only take place after agreement between both the Indian and Bangladeshi administrations across the border, and they hope the work can be taken forward soon.
अच्छी तैयारी है, हम लोग तो वोट देने आते हैं.
We vote in every election. The only problem is that the bridge to our village across the river is broken. We use a dry path these days, which gets submerged during the rains. We would appreciate if the bridge could be reconstructed.
नदी का उस तरफ गांव है.
Even with some inconveniences, the enthusiasm of these borderland villagers has not dimmed when it comes to taking part in the world's biggest democratic election.
Call it fate or the way boundaries are drawn between nations, that voters of villages such as Chitsakali, and there are dozens of them here in Jalpaiguri and adjoining Alipurdwar, they're caught between the zero line of the border between India and Bangladesh and the fence that's been put up 150 yards away on the Indian side. But does that mean that their democratic rights will be taken away on the 19th when this region votes in the national parliamentary elections? Well, that will not happen. This much has been ensured. With camera person Sumit Dhaman, Gautam Roy, Jalpaiguri, DD India.
Arunachal Pradesh is going to the polls on the first phase, that's on the 19th of April. And amid the hustle and bustle of the campaign schedule and the candidates, DD India's correspondent Dibyendu Mandal caught up with the Congress candidate from Arunachal West constituency, the former Chief Minister of the state, Nabam Tuki, to talk about the issues that he's fighting on. Let's listen.
As Arunachal goes to polls on the 19th of April, I'm joined by the Congress candidate and former Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Mr. Nabam Tuki, welcome to Doordarshan, sir. This time you're contesting against the sitting Union Minister Kiren Rijiju of the BJP. How big do you think the challenge is?
Yes, I am contesting this Lok Sabha elections from one West Parliamentary constituency of Arunachal Pradesh, and campaign is going on, and I'm doing well. There's a huge response from the public, mostly the youths of Arunachal Pradesh. They want change, so I think I'm doing well.
Well, we are joined by our correspondents who are scattered across different parts of the country. Akshay Dongre is joining us from Shillong in Meghalaya. Siddharth Bhardwaj is joining us from Hardwar in Uttarakhand, and Gautam Roy from Jalpaiguri in West Bengal. Thanks very much, all of you. Now, from the point of view of the largest electoral exercise, what's unique about this election from where you are standing? We'll go with you first, Akshay.
Well, Mark, there are a lot of unique ways of campaigning, canvassing that are taking place all over India to woo voters. The member of parliaments who are presently serving in the lower house of the parliament, or the candidates from different parties who are contesting this time. Everyone is trying to find unique ways to connect to the public, to cause least inconvenience to the public, to ensure that the voters are not at any sort of inconvenience as far as these campaigns are concerned. And right now I'm standing in a market of Shillong, where I found a very unique thing that is happening. So while the canvassing takes place in the morning or in the afternoon in most part of the country, here in Shillong what we have found unique is the fact that campaigning starts only after 6 p.m. Most of the canvassing that happens only in the afternoon or later in the evening. For example, where I'm standing right now, there was a campaign going on which has just ended, and the reason behind that is the fact that most of the people who work, they should be able to attend this campaigning process, etc., and they should be able to attend these speeches that are given by the leaders as well. And that exactly is the reason why the leaders choose the evening time instead of the morning or daytime, especially during the weekdays, to do the campaigning. For example, if you see here, the member of parliament just conducted a small meeting here, and since Meghalaya is a small state in terms of population, micromanagement of each and every single vote is done in a state like Meghalaya, where pocket meetings are held, where smaller meetings are held, and no large rally will be seen anywhere in the state, to ensure that there are no chaos that erupts as far as the campaigning is concerned, Mark.
And Gautam, what's unique from your point of view?
Well, Mark, what's been happening here in Jalpaiguri, which is going to poll on the 19th, along with two other constituencies in the state of West Bengal, which is Cooch Behar and Alipurduar. Perhaps I wouldn't say it's unique, but it is part and parcel of how the summer is moving along, that campaigning picks up pace as the sun starts to go down. Even now, the closest street corner here, there's a small stage set up and people are addressing. There are small time leaders who are addressing in favor of the different parties' candidates, their own parties' candidates. Even now, I'm not sure if you can get the ambience. We've tried to be at a slight more distance from those people there on the street corner, because otherwise my audio would have got drowned out. But the other aspect, of course, is how competitive the situation here is in this particular constituency itself in Jalpaiguri, because we've seen how in 2019 this entire area became like a BJP bastion. It completely swept the area. All the northern hills of West Bengal, all the 4 seats, including Darjeeling, which is going to polls in the next phase. But these 3 seats here as well, they got 100% result. But in 2021, when there were assembly elections in this particular seat in Jalpaiguri, there are 7 assembly constituencies, and 5 of them went to Trinamool Congress, which is ruling in the state. So the people here are able to make a distinction when it comes to who's ruling at the center and vote accordingly. There's Prime Minister Modi, he has a certain image. There's Mamata Banerjee here in the state, she has a certain image as well. And they made that distinction. This time around, we'll have to wait and see how the people choose. So you could say that since it's the parliamentary elections, it could be an advantage for the BJP, because that's what happened the last time. But Things are very competitive. It's a tooth and nail fight, and it's a fair fight as well between, in fact, three sides, because the left front, with the support of the Congress, have also put up their candidate here.
Siddharth, what's unique from where you're standing in Hardwar?
Well, Mark, it seems like everything is unique here right now. In this time around in Lok Sabha elections 2024, unlike previous elections where certain topics dominated the discourse, this time around the conversation has become more nuanced. People are talking about tourism, people are talking about climate, people are talking about employment and education. These are the topics where, people are talking about where I'm standing right now. In this is the most important constituency amongst all the constituencies we have in the state, and two political parties have major stronghold here, the BJP and the Congress, and the fight will be there between these two parties majorly. But as of now, unemployment remains the pressing issue here. And the campaigning style is different. People have become more aware of how the digital devices work, and this is how the campaigning is being done by the political parties, and
Right.
people are also actively engaging in it. And with the additional engagements from the first time voters and the other communities, it's making this election very special, Mark.
We leave it there. Thank you very much to all three of you, Akshay Dongre, Gautam Roy and Siddharth Bhardwaj. Thanks for joining us. Now, an attacker who fatally knifed 6 people in a Sydney mall was shot dead by the police in a beachside suburb of Bondi on Saturday. The police said as hundreds fled the scene. The assailant was shot by a police officer after he attacked shoppers in the busy Westfield Bondi Junction shopping centre. 5 of the 6 victims were women, while 8 people, including a 9-month-old baby, were taken to the hospital with stab wounds. New South Wales Police Commissioner Karen Webb told a press conference about this, and the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has expressed shock at the knife attack. France's President Emmanuel Macron held a video call with Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz. They discussed the situation in Ukraine following the participation by their countries at 8 conferences held in Paris and Berlin earlier this year. The call came as Macron and Scholz are set to participate in the European Union Summit on the 17th and the 18th of April. Let's take a look now at other stories making news around the world. North Korea's Kim Jong-un embraced the top Chinese delegate Zhao Leji in Pyongyang on Saturday. The meeting comes at the end of Zhao's 3-day visit to Pyongyang, where Zhao previously said that China is kicking off a friendship year. It's kicking off a friendship year with North Korea and is willing to work closely to help relations reach a higher level. Indonesia's military has denied using airstrikes in the remote area where a New Zealand pilot, Philip Metrens, was kidnapped by Papuan rebels. The rebels claim that the military actions endangered the pilot, but Indonesia dismisses it as a hoax. Efforts are underway for Mertens' rescue amid calls for negotiation and also international involvement. An 18-wheel truck with a loaded flatbed slammed into the U.S. state of Texas, killing 1 person and injuring more than a dozen. This happened in the U.S. state of Texas. The driver was taken into custody and he's been described as a suspect. In Turkey, rescue operations continued on Saturday to save 29 more people stuck in a cable car in the southern province of Antalya after an accident a day earlier. 1 person was killed and 10 injured after a cable car cabin collided with a broken pole on Friday. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll be discussing the UN report on Pakistan's minorities. India's economy continues to outperform expectations. The Namo app introduces a feature based on AI.
As the cycle of accountability returns, the time has come when the biggest democracy chooses to write another chapter in its glorious history. Development, justice, regionalism, a big political canvas. Everything will be put to test in this mega battle for glory. DD India dissects what makes elections 2024 the battle royale in Indian politics. Data and analysis free from bias to help you understand why India matters. Great Indian Election on weekdays at 8:30 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. The US President Joe Biden warns Iran against potential attack on Israel, Russia's additional military assets to protect Israel and the American forces in the region. UN experts alarmed by lack of protection for minority girls from forced religious conversions and forced marriages in Pakistan. 6 persons killed in a horrific attack at Sydney shopping centre. The attacker is shot dead. And returning now to our main story, which is about the UN Human Rights Commission, a report basically that appeared on its website on the 11th of April, a press release that was very critical of Pakistan and the plight of minorities in Pakistan, especially girls and women, and how they are, being forced to get married, abducted and forced to get married, and some are also sexually assaulted. To talk more about the situation and how it should be viewed, we have with us Mr. Prabu Dalal, is former Consul General of India to Pakistan and seasoned diplomat, former diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dalal. How long can Pakistan get away with such heinous crimes? Surely there's no place for forced abductions, rape, child marriage to the abductor in any society. But it seems to be accepted in Pakistan. Even the courts are accepting it.
Well, Mark, first of all, thanks for having me on your show to discuss this very important subject. Firstly, let me say that I have served in Pakistan, as you pointed out. And I have first-hand knowledge of things out there. Now, I can categorically say that religious minorities, especially Hindus, Christians, and Sikhs, face unending religious discrimination and serious human rights violations. Religious minorities in Pakistan have been subjected to forced conversions, forced marriages, and even forced child marriages. They also face the oppressive impact of Pakistani laws, such as the blasphemy law. Now, quite frequently, these minorities are even subjected to attacks and violence. But in fact, the attacks on religious minorities have claimed, in fact, hundreds of lives. So naturally, this issue has been attracting international attention, and pressure on the Pakistani establishment is starting to mount. Organizations such as the Global Human Rights Defense, the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, and even the US State Department have criticized Pakistan for the serious human rights violations of religious minorities, especially women. Now, as you mentioned, in a significant development, 2 days back, on the 11th of April, a statement was issued by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, which expressed disappointment with the continued atrocities inflicted upon women from the minority communities in Pakistan. And this report highlighted how Christian and Hindu girls are subjected to forced religious conversions, abduction, trafficking, forced marriage, child marriage, domestic servitude, and even sexual violence. So the UN statement called upon Pakistan to fulfill its international human rights obligations,
Yes.
to strengthen the enforcement of their existing laws, and to ensure that those who are responsible for such actions are held accountable. So Pakistan has been getting away scot-free, but I think that international pressure will mount on it. And this is very, very important. The UN report has highlighted the situation of women. Now, I must say that a wide variety of reports indicate that abductions and forced conversions continue to haunt the minority communities in Pakistan. And as I mentioned, these have particularly targeted young Hindu and Christian girls. What happens is that quite often after being abducted, these girls are forcibly married to random men, raped, sold into human trafficking rings, or forced into prostitution. Several Islamic seminaries in Sindh particularly incite their Muslim students to convert Hindu girls, telling them that it is the equivalent of Hajj Akbari, or the greatest religious duty of Muslims, to convert non-Muslims.
Okay.
These seminaries hold the kidnapped Hindu girls against their will, convert them to Islam, and subsequently force them to marry Muslim men. Often these men are twice their age. So threatened into silence and fearful for the safety of the families, the girls are then taken to a local court by their abductors, where a judge usually sanctions the legality of the marriage and conversion. This is the truth of what has been happening in Pakistan. So I'm glad that the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has issued a statement critical of Pakistan in this regard.
Also, Ambassador Dalal, there have been protests by the communities themselves. We showed a few stills of that. But reports suggest that the courts, we are given to understand that they are given to understand in there that these are love marriages, but you see, an underage girl doesn't have a voice. And I think the UN report seems to suggest that as well, that a girl under 18 is not in a position to decide whether she loves somebody or not. I mean, how important is this to get this message across?
The UN report points out that children are entitled to freedom of thought, freedom of religion, and their decisions in regard to their marriage should only be taken by them after they attain the age of maturity, which should be at least fixed at 18. So the UN report has been very, very firm that all women and girls must be treated without discrimination, including those who belong to the Christian and Hindu communities or to any religious belief, and that Pakistan must ensure that these beliefs, that the forcibly or otherwise, because this is a violation of international principles.
A final question, Ambassador Dalal. Pakistan keeps harping on the situation and or the plight of minorities in India. I mean, they are even talking about CAA and things like that. But I mean, we can clearly see they really have no locus standi, isn't it? When the situation is what it is in Pakistan.
Mark, to use that classic expression, Pakistan pointing fingers at India on human rights matters is a clear case of the pot calling the kettle black. The human rights situation, especially the situation of the minorities, is pathetic. And this is well known in the international community. As I said earlier, it's no surprise that the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has issued a statement in this regard. So the criticism, if any, which Pakistan tries to level against India in regard to the CAA or any other aspect is really, pot calling the kettle black or just trying to divert attention from the pathetic situation which prevails in their own country.
We live there. Ambassador Prabu Dalal, thank you for joining us and enlightening us on the situation of minorities in Pakistan. Now moving on, India's foreign exchange reserve soared to a new peak of $648.56 billion. This marks a notable $2.98 billion uptick, and the Reserve Bank of India has revealed that the prior week had witnessed reserves reaching $645.6 billion, showcasing a significant surge of $2.95 billion. Here's a report. In a major milestone, India's forex reserves have hit a fresh peak as of April 5 in the latest data of the Reserve Bank of India. India's foreign exchange reserves stood at an all-time high of $648.56 billion. The reserves increased by $2.98 billion. India's forex reserves, including the central bank's forward holdings, can now cover more than 11 months of imports. Foreign currency assets, a major component of the reserves, increased by $549 million to $571.166 billion. Apart from forex reserves, India's gold reserves saw a $2.4 billion increase, reaching $54.56 billion. Whereas special drawing rights rose by $24 million to $18.17 billion. India's reserve position with IMF increased by $9 million to $4.67 billion. Meanwhile, India's retail inflation hit 5-month low in March. Data released by the National Statistical Office showed retail inflation dipped to annual 4.9% in March compared to 5.1% in February. Food price index was marginally lower at 8.5% in March compared to 8.7% in the previous month. Industrial output growth rose an annual 5.7%. The Indian economy is set to achieve nearly 7% growth in the financial year 2024-25. Moody's expects India to be the fastest growing economy among the G20 nations in 2024. Goldman Sachs has raised India's 2024 growth projections to 6.6%. S&P revised India's growth projections from 6.4% to 6.8%. Morgan Stanley revised India's growth projection from 6.1% to 6.8%. In the last 10 years, the trajectory of India's growth has gone up. The government has undertaken diverse economic reforms to prepare the economy to grow at its potential by creating a business-friendly environment, improving ease of living, and strengthening the governance systems and processes. A group of Myanmar junta troops that retreated from their base in Mayawadi to a bridge along the Thai border were attacked by resistance groups using drones. Thai armed forces, they conduct severe patrolling near the border with Myanmar. They have done so after this incident as well. The Thai Foreign Minister Bahida Nakura has said that on Friday that no request had been received from the group of junta which had retreated to the border to cross into Thailand. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with top Indian gamers. The Prime Minister and the gamers had a discussion on the new developments in the gaming industry. They also discussed how the Modi government has recognized the creativity of gamers, promoting the gaming industry in India. They were also engaged in issues concerning gaming versus gaming while discussing the participation of others in the gaming industry.
We truly appreciate all the efforts by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and the government in first identifying this opportunity within the sunrise sector and also promoting and enabling innovation and growth within this sector. Great news for the entire gaming ecosystem on both fronts. One, it clearly promotes gaming as a viable career choice and inspires all the gaming enthusiasts out there to really go ahead and pursue their passion. Second, it also sets up gaming as a clear business opportunity for all game developers who are creating new game titles, new game formats and taking this across to the world.
Well, let's take a look now at other stories making the news. A 6-year-old boy fell into a 50 feet deep open bore well in Rewa district of Madhya Pradesh, which is in India, while playing in an agricultural field. The rescuers are working frantically to reach Mayank Kaul, who they believe is trapped at a depth of around 50 feet. The rescuers said that a lot of soil also got into the bore well after he fell in. India's Delhi and its surrounding areas on Saturday witnessed a sudden change in weather with light rains and dust storms, bringing a much-needed respite from the scorching heat conditions that have developed quickly. Now, several areas of Delhi, including R.K. Puram, India Gate, Pandit Pant Marg and Munirka, they witnessed a light rainfall with gusty winds. Reflecting India's Prime Minister's tech-savvy approach, the Namo app has introduced a unique feature based on AI for dissemination of information on government's flagship programs. The Namo AI, a one-of-its-kind feature, will share information on Prime Minister Modi and the government's achievements via AI-powered chatbot tools. Preparations are on for Runa Rat Yatra of Lord Lingaraj in India's Bhubaneswar. Artisans are busy giving the final touches to the chariot of Lord Lingaraj. The Runa Rat Yatra is the longest chariot, in fact it's not the longest, it's the largest chariot pull festival in Bhubaneswar and draws thousands of devotees every year. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Festivals related to the harvest season are celebrated in different forms across India. And Bollywood's liking for filming in Budapest. We'll take a look at that.
We are joined by India's ace shooter Rudraksh Patil, who in a short span of time has won multiple medals at the international level.
Back to all of these matches have been very memorable to me. I cherish those matches a lot because all of these matches, not only I played them for the first time, but I was able to win over there also.
You earned the quota for the country in 10-meter air rifle. What a great achievement at such a young age.
It was quite a very unique experience for me, which was coming with World Championship. I think so. The first thing which I was very proud was that I made India great over there and I could bring the quota.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Russia's Orenburg is battling rising water as the level of the Ural River tops 11 meters. Meanwhile, a local animal shelter in the flood-hit area is now hosting more than 350 animals. Volunteers from other regions have organized van loads of aid for the animals, but the director of the shelter said that she has received scant assistance from officials. Earlier, regional authorities called for the mass evacuation of parts of Orenburg, which is home to 500,000 people. Although there is still a lot of ice on Yakutia's Lena River, what's happened is that locals are working hard to stop potential ice jams and also spring floods in the coming weeks. The goal is to force certain sections of the ice to melt, melt faster than others, thus breaking the solidity of the ice cover. An official of the local river agency said that with the help of blackening process, some parts of the ice cover are sprayed with coal dust. Another widely used technique is cutting deep grooves in the ice with chainsaws, and this is so that they can actually be in the shape of diamonds apparently. And the official said that the works cost about $500,000 and they're hoping to complete it by the 20th of April. The 13th of April marks one of the darkest days in India's history. It did mark, however, a turning point in the freedom struggle of India, with the movement, the Indian freedom movement, gaining that support of the Indians and non-Indians from far and wide. It is the 105th anniversary of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Kriti Vadera reports.
Baisakhi is the agricultural festival of happiness and prosperity which is celebrated in Punjab every year on 13th of April. A cold-blooded genocide that led to the bloodiest Baisakhi ever took place on April 13th, 1919. The tranquil city of Amritsar in Punjab witnessed a horrific event that shook the nation to its core. British colonial forces under the command of Brigadier General Dyer opened fire on thousands of unarmed Indian civilians gathered at the Jallianwala Bagh public garden. The crowd had gathered peacefully to protest against the arrest and deportation of two nationalist leaders and to demand freedom from British rule. What followed was a brutal onslaught that lasted for around 10 to 15 minutes. The firing was indiscriminate, leaving hundreds dead and thousands injured. Among the victims were women and children, their lives cut short in a tragic act of colonial oppression. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre was a turning point in India's struggle for independence. It ignited a firestorm of anger and resentment against British rule, uniting people from all walks of life in their quest for freedom. However, in April 2019, the then British Prime Minister Theresa May described the massacre as a shameful scar on British Indian history.
The tragedy of Jallianwala Bagh in 1919 is a shameful scar on British Indian history. As Her Majesty the Queen said before visiting Jallianwala Bagh in 1997, it is a distressing example of our past history with India. We deeply regret what happened and the suffering caused. I'm pleased that today the UK-India relationship is one of collaboration, partnership, prosperity and security. Indian diaspora make an enormous contribution to British society.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the Jallianwala Bagh National Memorial at Amritsar in August 2021 and paid homage to the martyrs and survivors of the massacre, emphasizing the importance of preserving the memory of the tragedy for future generations.
जलियांवाला बाग का ये नया स्वरूप देशवासियों को इस पवित्र स्थान के इतिहास के बारे में, इसके अतीत के बारे में बहुत कुछ जानने के लिए प्रेरित करेगा.
The memorial serves as a place of reflection and remembrance, ensuring that the memory to the Jallianwala Bagh massacre lives on as a symbol of India's struggle for freedom and justice. Kriti Vadhera for DD India.
The Punjabi community in India is celebrating Baisakhi on Saturday, and for Sikhs, Baisakhi is a reiteration of the core principles like honesty, compassion and selfless service. It also marks the harvest festival in the Punjab region. Farmers pray for a bountiful harvest and express gratitude for the past year's produce. Processions, music, dance, rallies add to the festive spirit, celebrating prosperity and a good crop yield. And on the occasion, lakhs of devotees from all over the country took a bath in the Ganga in Hardwar city of India's Uttarakhand. There was a crowd of devotees at various Ganga ghats, including Harki Paddy, since the morning. Now, this weekend, which is April 13th to 15th in India, in fact, it brings the second cluster of harvest and also the Hindu New Year festivals after Gudi Padwa. And it's the first day of the Rongali Bihu in Assam. Rongali Bihu is also known as Bohag Bihu, and it's one of the most important festivals celebrated in Assam in India's northeast. It marks the start of the Assamese New Year. Today is the Guru Bihu, which is celebrated across parts of Assam. It's part of the Bihu festival series, which marks different stages of the agricultural cycle. Guru Bihu specifically honors it also celebrates cattle and the role that cattle play in agriculture. It's a crucial role. It's the time for feasting, also traditional music and dance performances and cultural activities take place. The Indian state of Kerala is going to be celebrating Vishu festival on Sunday. It marks the traditional agricultural new year of the state. On Vishu, the state comes alive with vibrant and colorful festivities. traditions and delicious cuisine. Vishu is celebrated on the first day of the Malayalam month of Medam, which falls on April 14th or 15th, depending on which year it's chosen. And the festival is marked by a lot of rituals, customs and traditions which mark the essential event in the state's cultural life. Hungary's Allure, or the Lear to Hungary for filming. It's a filming destination. It's soaring among Indian filmmakers because of the landmarks, the low cost of production apparently, and versatile settings. Now, from Bollywood blockbusters and TV series to music videos, Hungary's capital Budapest has been a backdrop for Indian productions looking for a European setting that will not break the bank. Well, here's what Pablo Gutierrez found out. Here's his report.
Lights, camera, action. This is the latest Indian production shot in Budapest, Hungary. Some of India's most talented musicians are on the stage, ready for their close-up.
Everybody here, sound engineer, is very professional, very committed for the work, for the music. So we really like that attitude.
Playing the bansuri is in Padasnath's DNA. He is the third generation of Indian flute players in his family. Filming music videos in Hungary, he says, has given his productions a unique look that sets them apart from what's being shot in India.
Such a beautiful venue we are in, and it's pleasure for any artist. It's pleasure to be such a beautiful theater. It's sounding so amazing, and we are getting great shots for our video.
The man responsible for this 12-camera music video shoot has worked with some of Bollywood's biggest stars.
Our first biggest project was the name of the movie was Sultan, but one of the biggest actor, Salman Khan, was coming, and we will shoot with them.
And some of Hollywood's A-listers.
Yeah, with Steven Spielberg, the biggest one, Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Donald Sutherland.
Chutor says there has been an increased demand over the last couple of years from Indian filmmakers to shoot in Hungary. His company, Official Films, provides them with a film crew, equipment, location, and film permits, and manages the local budget of the shoot to ensure it gets done on time. From action-packed thrillers to traditional Indian music videos, Chutor's company has filmed 15 productions for Bollywood's market. He expects his business to keep growing thanks to the 30% tax rebate the Hungarian government gives to foreign productions to entice them to shoot in this country.
It's not just the economic incentives that are drawing more Indian productions to shoot in Hungary. It's also the variety of magnificent locations like this one that can be seamlessly transformed into any international backdrop.
And it's not just Chutor and his crew who have Hollywood experience. The orchestra playing along with the Indian musician has scored many Hollywood blockbusters at a fraction of what it would cost in London, Europe's main film hub.
And I think they realize it's maybe better to come here like to UK or to any other European country.
Last year, the Hungarian film industry set record earnings, reaching $700 million in profit. Currently, only the UK tops them in Europe. Production houses in Hollywood East, as film insiders now call Budapest, say great film locations are key for top-notch Bollywood flicks, and Hungary has plenty of them to offer. For DD India, Pablo Gutierrez, Budapest.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.
Bahana number 11.